All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Joel with Details. Today we're going to go over different types of clay. We're going to talk about the grades of clay and the different types of clay.
For the people that don't know what clay is, what's the purpose of it?
So the purpose of clay is to remove any embedded contaminants on the clear coat that you can't remove with traditional washing or fallout remover. The least aggressive way to remove contamination is obviously going to be a wash. The second is going to be an iron remover or some sort of decon or maybe even a degreaser on the surface. That's going to break up the contaminants and have it released from the surface. But there's some contaminants that are embedded into the clear coat that need friction to be pulled off and grabbed with actual clay.
So, to make it simple, pretty much make the car feel smooth.
Exactly. What it's going to do is you're exfoliating the surface of the vehicle and getting all of that surface grit off that can't be removed. Even after you wash the vehicle, if you still have that feeling of that surface grit, that means you have that embedded contaminants on the surface, and this is going to help remove it. Once you hit it with these guys and you do it properly, it's going to feel extremely smooth.
So, real quickly, Joel, how many different types of clay methods are there?
There's quite a few. You have clay mitts, you have clay towels, you have clay surface prep blocks, you have the traditional clay, and then you have different grades. So the grades are going to determine how much contaminants are going to pull off at any given time. And then you have professional grade clay, and then you have consumer grade clay. So the professional grade clay, over time I've tested pretty much all the clays that are accessible to myself, whether it be through Mothers, Meguiar's, Chemical Guys, Pro Lines, Geon, all these different types of clays, and all the professional grade clays I have noticed have had significant better results than the consumer grades.
So what's the first one you want to show us?
So the first one I want to show is going to be a fine grade. This is by Nanoskin. It's called the Auto Scrub Sponge. This is a really fine grade. If you look at the surface here, it's going to be extremely fine. You're not going to have a lot of ridges. You're not going to have a lot of grit to it. It's really, really fine. So this guy's going to be good for, if you're doing a car with very light contamination, or you're just doing a wash and wax with a Claybar, which is a lot of services, a lot of detailers out there have. This would be ideal for that because you're not going to be causing a lot of marring because it's so fine. So it's not going to be, the friction is not going to cause a lot of marring and damaging while pulling up any light. And this would be recommended for very, very light contamination. The second one I'm going to have here is going to be a Speedy Surface Prep Mini SSP. This guy here is going to be a form of a clay towel. So this is a smaller clay towel. So the surface is going to have the same type of material as a clay bar or these synthetic blocks here. It's going to be a fine grade as well. This one, you're able to cover a larger surface. You're going to have, you'll be able to have nice even pressure along while gliding across the vehicle, and you're going to cover a larger area in a faster amount of time. This also would be ideal for a wash and clay package, something you're doing really quickly for very light contamination removal. The third one we have here is going to be a poly-shaped block from CarPro. This is what I've been using lately. This guy is fantastic. As you can see, it has ridges in it. These little diamond designs in here have been great for grabbing. I have a lot of clients who I've been seeing fallout from their trees, little sap and material that falls off of the tree surface and the leaves that actually leave little tiny yellow specks all over the vehicle that we just cannot get out with normal scrubbing. So these guys here, these little ridges, it actually grabs and snags those off. And this guy, I wouldn't consider it a fine grade, but it's also not going to be, I would consider this one mild. It's not going to be heavy either. So this one's very, very nice, and it has a nice sponge on the backside so you're able to hold, and you can kind of contour it. It bends. It's pretty pliable. So this guy, I really like getting under, you can get into areas that you can't get into with the towel. And our final clay is going to be just your traditional clay. As you can see, the clay here is going to be pliable. You can move it around, twist it up. This guy, you have to you know, you have to knead it out first before you use it. But these guys here are going to be, you know, as pliable as it gets. So it's going to be, you know, almost like a Play-Doh type of material, but a little bit thicker, but it's also going to help. This is going to be a more coarse clay, and this clay is going to be able to pull heavier contaminants out, but it is going to cause a little bit of marring. That marring will need to be polished out post-clay, but for the most part, if you're looking to get heavy decontamination removal, you're going to want to go with the traditional professional grade clay that's on the heavier side.
Got it. So I have a question.
Yes.
So let's say there's somebody out there who's starting out. What are some good beginner clay options?
I would go with, if you're just starting out, I would probably start off with something like this, a surface prep towel, which is going to be, they're usually on the finer side. I've never seen they could be out there, but from what I'm aware of, I haven't seen a heavier surface prep mitt that removes a large amount of contaminants. They tend to be a little bit on the finer side, so you're not going to be able to really create any damage. You can create damage with the traditional clay if you're applying too much pressure or going over the same area multiple times. But something like this is going to be good because you're going to basically be doing the same motions you would be doing as a wash, but you're going to be pulling up contaminants at the same time. One of the biggest advantages of claying is giving you proper prep surface. So before you, in between your wash and your polishing stage, a prep must be done if the vehicle has any kind of surface contaminants. If not, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be clogging up your polishing pads with those surface contaminants and basically spreading them throughout the vehicle. So you're going to reduce the life of your polishing pad as well as inflict damage into other areas that you're actually trying to correct. So by using this, you're going to save your pads and you're going to have a proper prep surface in order to start the polishing process.
Do they all cost the same?
No, the prices are going to range. Traditional clay is a little bit on the expensive side considering that it's a one-time use, but it is going to be the most efficient at removal. But these guys here may be a little bit cheaper. You can use multiple times, so it's going to be a little bit more cost efficient, these three options here. Also, another downside to traditional clay, if you drop it, the contaminations are going to, anything on the floor is going to stick to the surface of the clay, so you cannot put it back on the surface of the vehicle because you're going to inflict damage. With these guys, you could rinse them out, throw them in the wash, you know, follow the instructions on how the manufacturer is recommending to clean them off, and then you can use them again.
What's one of the biggest mistakes someone could do with clay? Maybe they don't have enough experience. Maybe they're putting too much force into it.
Yeah. So the level of pressure being applied is probably the biggest mistake I see people doing with clay. You want to use the friction on the surface to remove the contaminants, not pressure. When you're applying pressure, then you're also causing marring, and those contaminants are going to be on the surface of whatever medium that you're using. And if you're putting too much pressure, those contaminants are already on the surface of here out of the paint. And what you're doing, you know, by applying more pressure is rubbing that into the paint surface, so you're inflicting damage. Also, probably the biggest mistake I see people using with clay is using clay when it's not needed. It is not always needed. Clay should be reserved for the times where you're preparing the paint surface for a polish, or if it's needed. You'll know if it's needed if you have overspray, if you have a gritty surface, if it's been exposed to a lot of contamination, if you've gone on a long road trip and you know that it's been through an area with heavy industrial fallout, or you're behind a bunch of cars that have heavy exhaust, if you're on heavy highway or heavy traffic areas, maybe you went to, you took a road trip to the northwest, and you're in a very rainy climate where there's lots of elements coming down on the car. Maybe your car was parked somewhere under a tree for a long amount of time. Things like that. That's when you're going to want to use a Claybar. You're not going to want to use it for a maintenance wash every 2 months. It's not something that you want to do because you are causing damage by claying the vehicle, improperly. All right, guys. So I hope you got some knowledge today with some of these types of clays and some of the techniques and some of the tips that I've given you. If you have any further questions regarding clays, remember, I have the consulting line. You can reach out to me for any kind of consulting when it comes to anything in the detailing world. Also, If you have any opinions on any of these guys here, or you have some recommendations for the community itself, go ahead and leave them in the comments. All the products I have here, all these clay products are all going to be available at detailedimage.com. There's a 10% coupon code in the link in the description below. And that's it for clay, guys, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.